Hey everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the best roleplay focused DLC sized mods in Baldur's Gate 3's mod manager. We got a lot of stuff here that absolutely changes how Baldur's Gate 3 will play. I want to dive right in here with the biggest one that we got here with the D&D Player's Handbook 2024 All-in-One Beyond by Yoonmoon-sik. And coming in at under 40 megabytes, this includes an insane amount of content. Here's all the new subclasses and classes that it adds with the different icons. There's a bunch of new feats, a ton of new feats and new items and a lot more. And you can see here, they all have their own unique icons. Things like the Artificer, the Gunslinger, Illrigger, and Scion classes are all added with the respective subclass abilities. And it updates all the classes here to match their 2024 counterparts, which Baldur's Gate 3 is based on the 2014 rule set. It was made a while back, which includes things like the Sorcerer getting their innate sorcery, giving advantage on attack rolls of the Sorcerer spells that they cast, and also things like the Sorcerer's Burst. Not only that, but it includes some subclasses like the Aberrant Mind or Clockwork Sorcery, and the new Spellfire Sorcery, which is included in the Heroes of Faerun expansion, which came out just previously. Now, love it or hate it, 2024 Player's Handbook has some interesting changes, like the Draconic Sorcerer here getting their Charisma modifier added to their armor class. You can also get things like the Draconic Breath attacks here. You can also summon in a dragon and get access to some more spells. It also introduces things like the hit point die, which you can use to recover your health. Not only this, it also adds in a bunch of new spells here, like Finger Guns, Concussion, and a bunch of others. Couldn't get the races to appear, but here's the list of the races that have changes or are added. And the background's got some massive changes with a ton of new options for backgrounds, which I think is great for role-playing and just being able to create the character that you want to create. What's also cool is not only they give you skills, they also come with different feats that they'll give your character. And you can see there, got a lot of different options. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to list out every single change here, but I'm going to show you all this class changes here. You can just read through these. I will be doing a future video on this mod just because there is so much to cover, but it'll probably take me an hour to go through everything because you can see there's just so much happening to all the different classes. Here are the different feat groups that get added. So you got like the 2024 Player's Handbook, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, the Forgotten Realms Hero of Faerun based on Baldur's Gate 3, the Lord of the Rings Role-Playing, Valdis Spire Secret, the Crooked Moon, Unearthed Arcana, and Fighting Styles. There's also a bunch of stat adjustments, progression adjustments, new items, guns, ability score item rebalances, and a bunch of different changes here. And yeah, pretty much everything's updated for Player's Handbook 2024 and Unearthed Arcana 2025. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff going on with this, and it's definitely worth checking out just because of the scale of this. Here's again all the different spells that got changed. It's actually crazy. So yeah, the 2024 All-in-One Beyond is more than you can even imagine. But if you want something that's on console that's a similar experience, we got the 2024 spell updates here by Mob Talon. I actually did a full video where I broke down all the changes that are in this mod because this is another one where there's a lot of changes. Now, with some of these mods, like if they change similar values, like this won't actually work with the previous mods, so you have to pick or choose depending on what you want. But the nice thing about this, I've included a lot of mods that are small parts of other things here that you may be interested in. But this mod here makes a ton of different changes. Here's all the cantrip changes, all the level 1 spell changes. I like things like the change to hundreds mark up to the 2024, which gives extra damage in force, and it also will work on any type of attack roll, so you can get that on spell attacks too. And I'm not a huge fan of this, but this is just the way the 2024 Player's Handbook handles Divine Smite for the Paladin. It makes it cost a bonus action similar to the other smites, but in return, it actually boosts up all the other types of the smites here. So Wrathful Smite gets its abilities changed, makes it a bit more of an attractive option compared to Divine Smite. Divine Smite obviously being one of the most powerful abilities in D&D. Getting a pretty big nerf is obviously a bit to swallow if you really enjoy the Paladin. There's also some nice changes, like Heat Metal doesn't actually work properly at higher levels, and this mod will change it. Magic Weapon gets their concentration removed. There's also changes to like the Spiritual Weapon, making it able to be upcast. So there's a lot of changes across the board here. And interestingly enough, it actually adds some spell upcast because spells that are level 6 weren't meant to be upcast, and they typically don't have them. This mod actually adds them, and actually is pretty crazy. 2d8 extra damage on things like Circle of Death. Kind of nice. So the thing is, that mod just changes the spells that are already in Baldur's Gate 3, doesn't add any, and I think the scale of this is amazing, so this is a great mod by Mob Talon. They have also made a few other great things, like the 24 feat updates. Now, this mod isn't on console. If you're curious which ones are and aren't, you can check the tags here when I'm reviewing them here. It'll have it now available on console. This makes some pretty big changes across the board to all the different feats. I also have done a feat mod. If you're curious on the best feat mods, there's quite a few of them. This just makes things updated to the 2024 Player's Handbook. Some nice changes like Lightly Armored now giving shield proficiency, allowing for more open builds that you can prepare, and things like Crossbow Expert, which were previously I think actually a solid option, now give a +1 to dexterity, making it an even better option. And some powerful options like Warcaster now getting a +1 to your mental saves. This is another great mod by Mob Talon, and if you like feat mods, we also have Tasha's Feats here by the Lucid Frog and T-Dak. This is similar to the one that I covered at the first here, but this is just a standalone version, which brings in feats like the Slasher, which increase your strength or dexterity by 1, and when making a slashing attack, you can reduce the movement speed of a target. On a critical hit, you can apply the slash tier condition to the enemy, which will give their attack rolls disadvantage. There's also the Chef, great with the Pizza Chef Monk subclass mod I just released. Your Constitution or Wisdom increases by 1 to a maximum 20, and you can use the Chef's Treat, which allows you to cook food, which allows you to replenish your teammates' health points. And there's also some of the fan favorites like Eldritch Adept, which I think is actually an extremely powerful feat. This lets you choose one of the Eldritch Invocations, with things like Devil's Sight being one of the best abilities in the game. This makes it a very attractive option. You can see here, these are all the ones that are currently in this. It is available on console, and they're working on the Piercer, Poisoner, and Skill Expert, so we can expect some more stuff in the future. We also have some other mods by Mob Talon I do want to quickly mention here. They don't just have the 2024 spell updates and feats. They also have things like the Fighter update, which will bring in a bunch of changes to the Fighter class. So if you just wanted like a 2024 update to a certain class and not have to like have the changes to the Paladin, for example, this can do that. And you can now pick more spells with like the Eldritch Knight and go through a bunch of different changes related to the 2024 update. So they also have ones on the Paladin, Sorcerer, Warlock, and the War Domain Cleric. So if you like playing the 2024 updates, like if you're in Tabletop, for example, this can now currently match that. We also got another mod that I think is awesome, the Weapon Mastery D&D Player's Handbook 2024 by Jouv. This adds in the weapon masteries. And here's all the different attacks. The Paladin, Barbarian, Ranger, Rogue, and Fighter get to choose these, and these just give you some special weapon mastery charges here, which lets you do certain attacks if you're using specific weapons. So you have daggers, light hammers, and scimitars equipped in the offhand. Once per turn, you can make an attack with your offhand weapon without using a bonus action. That's using the Nick ability. There's also Topple with Quarterstaff, Trident, Battle Axe, or Maul. You can force a target to do a Constitution saving throw or get knocked prone per long rest. There's also the Graze here, which gives you additional slashing damage whenever you do attack with a Greatsword or a Glaive per long rest. They're not overpowered, and again, roleplay friendly. If you're used to having the weapon masteries in the 2024 Player's Handbook, this is pretty cool. It gives things like the longbows the ability to slow enemies, a bit of crowd control and kiting, which I think is cool to see in Baldur's Gate. You get cleave attacks and great axes and halberds, so it gives you an actual incentive to use some of these other weapons. There are somewhat similar to weapon masteries in Baldur's Gate 3 naturally, but this is a cool option and gives you something new to kind of play around with for the melee characters, because I mean there's spells that can be added, but this is just nice. I'm on a roll with the 2024 Player's Handbook update, so I just want to mention a few that I also like here with the Monk 2024 Player's Handbook by Furblow. They've made a bunch of other mods related to 2024's Player Handbook, but this adds in the Warrior of Mercy subclass as well, which has a healing focus of it, so really cool. There's also the Warrior of Elements, which is basically the way of the 4 elements. They've made a change to make it the Warrior Shadow, Warrior of the Elements, the Warrior of the Open Hand to match 2024 Player's Handbook. So you can see here the Monk base game abilities have been all changed. It gives you some cool things like the Uncanny Metabolism. When you start combat, you can actually roll die and get some extra health back. You can also deflect attacks from bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing attacks. You can like throw back arrows. This gives you a melee attack reflect. They make changes to the Stunning Strike, so if the target saves on it, it'll reduce their speed by half, which I think is pretty nice. And the Empowered Strikes here, whenever you deal unarmed damage, you can either deal force damage or it's normal damage type, which is pretty cool. The Warrior of the Elements, I think, got some of the biggest changes here, which is cool. It can give you reach, making your unarmed strikes give 10 feet extra range. Elemental Strikes let you do acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage on top of the normal damage type there. And can also push them back 10 feet, which is kind of cool. You can also manipulate elements here. Using the Elemental Burst as a magic action, you can use 2 focus points to do an Elemental Explosion in an area. So yeah, all the classes across the board, or subclasses for the Monk across the board here, got some pretty big changes. I think this is cool, and also the new subclass added is really fun as well. There's also some changes to the Bard here with their 2024 Player's Handbook update. So this is cool. It's fully compatible with Chiz Freak's College Dance subclass as well. Adds in a bunch of new cantrips to the Bard. If you're a Bard fan, it's kind of interesting to see all the different changes that were made. Some of them are very similar to what we've already got with like the Jack of all trades. And you can also recover your Bardic Inspiration by expending spell slots, which I think is really nice for the Bard. Magical Secret's already in the game, so it now includes the whole Bard, Cleric, Druid, and Wizard spell list as described in the 2024 Player's Handbook, and then each of the subclasses also got their changes. Furblows had made a bunch of other mods, like things like the Poison Mastery, Dual Wielder Feat Enhance. I actually recommend all of their mods. They've made some race updates here too, which I think are kind of interesting, especially the human one, which makes them a bit more of a better option. As in Baldur's Gate 3, they're not super amazing, but yeah, honestly, check out all their mods here. Anything you can see on screen is likely going to give you an incredible time. And we also got some more changes here to the 2024 Player's Handbook, Dragonborn by Rookie CF here. Now, the Dragonborn got the short end of the stick, one of the coolest looking races, and unfortunately, they aren't super powerful. Now, I also want to mention Akelka makes some really great Dragonborn customization mods if you're looking to make a Dragonborn, but this video is more so focused on the content style mods, not character creation. But some of the big changes, you get breath weapon charges, which is based on your proficiency bonus instead of per short rest recharging. They also can count as an extra attack, which I think is really nice. So you can just do an attack with your frost breath and then go into doing a melee attack if you got the extra attack feature. This makes the fighters a much better option. You can also do a line or a cone version of each of these. So yeah, this is a really fun mod, definitely worth checking out. It's also available on console. Now, some more mods that I think are great. This one actually just recently came out about a week and a bit ago by TheRealZear. This is a compilation of RealZear's 2024 mods, which include the War Cleric 2024, Rogue 2024-ish, the Feats, Wild Magic Table 2024 Spell List, Wild Magic Tides of Chaos, War Magic, Heroes of Faerun spells, which is the newest expansion to D&D, 2024 spell editions, Monk 2024, Warlock Invocations, and the Races 2024. These are all videos I've covered previously in my best mods of the week. There's a lot going on with this one, kind of similar to the first. This is just a compilation of 12 of their mods put into one. I really like the Warlock Invocations, as mentioned previously. This is one that I think just fits the game really well. So giving Pact of the Blade the ability to do either necrotic, radiant, or psychic damage, I think is really cool. Can also apply Hexblade's Curse, and it's the regular old Pact of the Blade. There's things like Eldritch Spear Invocation, which will give you double the range for your Eldritch Blast, which is actually really fun to play with. You also have a bunch of other spells and abilities that were added here, and things like the Devouring Blade, which can give you the improved extra attack once you hit level 12. So if you like that 3 attacks with the Warlock, that's pretty fun to do. It also gives the Life Drinker ability at level 9, and you can get a 1d6 necrotic and a 1d8 healing once per turn, so making that a lot better than just the charisma modifier. But yeah, anything by TheRealZear here is really good. Definitely recommend checking out all of their mods that they got. As you can see, there's actually quite a few, and they just released one called Mayhem Mode, which is quite interesting, and the Nightmare difficulty, which I also enjoy. Now, those were some large mods. If you want something a little bit smaller in scope, True Strike 2024 Player's Handbook version by Travelers and Trinkets UK is really cool. And this makes True Strike an actually good option. What it does is it turns True Strike into an attack, kind of like how Booming Blade's an attack. Guided by a flash of magical insight, you make one attack with the weapon used in your spell casting. So if you're a charisma caster, you're going to use that. This attack uses your spell casting for the attack and damage rolls instead of using your strength or dexterity. If the attack deals damage, it can be radiant or the weapon's normal damage type. So you get to make a choice whenever using this. And you can see here all the different Eldritch Invocations that I got from the different mods that I have currently installed. Yeah, there's a lot for the Warlock between all this. So you can see the True Strike abilities here. So you got the regular True Strike, which will add the Radiant damage onto it. You got the True Strike Radiant. We have a Sneak Attack Radiant, the True Strike Ranged, and then the Radiant Ranged attack. So if you want to do this, you can go right ahead and deal that Radiant damage straight from your bow. Taking one of the worst cantrips in the game, or the worst cantrip in the game, to something usable is really nice. Travelers and Trinkets UK has also released some other things, like changing the Healing Word into the Abjuration spell, and a bunch of other changes to spells that I think are nice, because it's cool to just have a single change if you want to make a small change to your game and not something big. Going back to a big one that I think everybody knows, Mystra spells. This is an incredible mod by Random Killer here, which adds 135 new 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons spells into the game. There's a lot of them that just didn't make the cut into Baldur's Gate 3 due to how they could be implemented, and this mod takes it into its own hands and makes it a reality. You got things like the Green Flame Blade, Summon Red Dragon, Booming Blade, and also one of the most powerful cantrip spells in D&D in total is Steel Wind Strike, which attacks 5 targets with a 60-10 of force damage. Kind of crazy. But yeah, it gives a bunch of new spells, and I also did actually a full video breaking down all the different spells that were added in it. I think this is an incredible mod, and we're checking it out. And another one that I want to mention quickly that I think a lot of people are aware of is Fade's Equipment Distribution by Graphic Fade. This is an equipment mod, but I feel like it's very roleplay friendly. I also would just recommend grabbing the all-in-one, which adds in 400 new items with about 30 per class-ish. So yeah, this just adds in a bunch of great new items to the game. It's really worth checking out. If you haven't already played through with this, it's worth it. 1.2 million downloads for good reason. And if you're looking for more, Fade's Assorted Treasure expansion kind of expands on that idea, adding more lore-appropriate items into lore-friendly locations. There's also things like the quivers here, which can enhance your range attacks. All of the items I feel are extremely well balanced, and Graphic Fade oftentimes posts in my Discord server looking for feedback, making it actually a very well balanced and well presented mod. I'm a big fan of this here, and definitely worth checking out all the Graphic Fade mods if you're curious. I really like the Aegis of the Prism Shield here in Act 3. Now, another awesome mod which expands upon what we already have in Baldur's Gate 3 and doesn't feel like it's out of place. The more enemies in basic fights, if you haven't used this one, it's just going to add another enemy into place where it makes sense, like the one ogre that you can find at the door of the Goblin Camp. Now there's 2. If there's 3 imps, now there's 6. It's a nice mod that, again, just enhances what's already in Baldur's Gate 3. I would also recommend Byrella mod here. They have the extra encounters and mini-bosses. 3 million downloads for good reason, because it just adds in so many fights into the game. New mini-bosses and areas to explore, and it feels very lore-appropriately. When you're fighting through this, you'll actually sometimes think that this is something that Larian intended. They also have a map here showing all the different mini-bosses, encounters, and the twin fights, like if you're fighting with an ally against the enemies. They have it all listed out in the mod itself. So definitely, if you haven't checked this one out, I'm pretty sure everyone has, but it's an amazing one. Now, into some class mods. There's a lot of unbalanced ones. There's a lot of balanced ones out there. And some of the most balanced are things like Sumer Dagnauth's 5e fighter subclass combined with Echo Knight. This adds into the Banneret Purple Dragon Knight fighter, the Brute fighter, Cavalier, increased movement speed, the Echo Knight, which is a cool one, allowing you to fight with an Echo clone. There's also the Psy Warrior, the Rune Knight, the Samurai, the Sharpshooter, and many others. I also want to mention they do have mods including the Barbarian with the Ancestral Guardian, the Path of the Battle Rager, the Path of the Beast, the Path of the Juggernaut here, with the Path of the Storm Herald, a bunch of cool elemental attacks. The Zealot here, which gives you like a radiation or a radiant or necrotic version of the build. And here's the different abilities that you get here. And then there's also the Reckless attack. They also included the Ascended Dragon Monk, which I think is really cool because it gives you a bunch of elemental damage attacks for the monk. The Astral Self Monk, which gives you some extra ranged attacks and force damage. The Kensei, which I know a lot of people love, is some melee damage, or a melee weapon damage. You get a Kensei weapon, which you can fight with. The Way of the Long Death, which is one of my favorites. You get the really cool Touch of the Long Death. And you can also make everyone in an area of effect frightened. There's also the Way of Mercy Healing Focus Monk, which gives you the healing hands. The Way of the Sun Soul, which is a radiant and fire damage focus monk. This is a really fun one as well. And they actually had a huge update recently to the Ranger subclass combined, adding in the Drake Warden, which is so fun because you can infuse your strikes with elemental attacks. You get an actual dragon companion, which was a huge there's no animations for the dragons properly in Baldur's Gate 3, so there's hundreds of hours of work that went into making this a reality. One of the coolest class mod or subclasses, and actually one of my favorites. And again, very well balanced. There's also the Fey Wanderer with all these abilities here. The Horizon Walker, which is force damage and teleportation. The Monster Slayer, which got some fun abilities against like monster aberrations. Primeval Guardian, I am Groot. And then also the ability to, again, turn into a tree here is kind of cool. And last but not least, by Sumer Dagnauth, they also have their Cleric subclass combined with things like the Arcana Domain here, which is more of a spell-casting focused Cleric. Forge Domain, which is fire and armor focus. Grave Domain, one of the best supports in the game, being able to apply a vulnerability to an enemy. It's pretty crazy. Order Domain being more enchantment focused of a Cleric. The Peace Domain, which is kind of a protector style class. The Twilight Domain, great one for Shadowheart. And yeah, they also do have one other mod I should quickly mention here too, with the Purple Dragon Knight 2024, which adds in a actual purple dragon to fight alongside with custom animations. We also got some other subclasses amazingly well done here by Incognito Burrito, and a bit of help from Sumer Dagnauth making the icons. The Book of Sorcerers adds in all of the 5th edition Sorcerer subclasses. A Barrent or a Burnt Mind. I'm surprised this one wasn't actually in Baldur's Gate 3, as one of the origins for this subclass is actually the same thing as the story to Baldur's Gate 3. It also adds in the Clockwork Soul, my personal favorite, the Divine Soul, and Lunar Sorcery subclasses. Burrito does a great job of listing out all the different features here you're going to get at each of these subclass levels. And they not only have sorcerers, but they also have the rogues, their newest one, which was released in November, which adds in 5 new rogue subclasses with the Inquisitive, Mastermind, Phantom, Scout, and Soul Knife, one of the most popular ones, all coming with their own unique abilities here, and full level 20 support too, which I think is great. They also got their Book of Druids, which adds in the Circle of Dreams, Shepherd, and Wildfire. And I really like the Wildfire spirits that you get for the Fire Druid there. Really fun. It also comes with some unique armor too for each of these subclasses, which I think is a very nice touch since the other Druid subclasses do get theirs as well. And the last one we'll be ending off with here is the 5e Sword Coast Cantrips by Ridiak here, which adds in some more cantrips. This is kind of similar to some other spell mods, but if you just want the blade cantrips, things like Green Flame Blade here, which is based on 2024 D&D, also adds in like the Lightning Lure, Sword Burst, and other cantrips here. Actually, I'll include one bonus one here. This is by ZX10RX, who has made some really great class mods. I'd also recommend, the Mindweaver class mod and the Sword Dancers of Eilistree here, which are two very well balanced experiences. But he's included this new Homebrew Blade cantrips, which was released a couple weeks back, which adds in kind of some similar comparisons to things like if you're using Booming Blade, you now have the Static Blade, which lets a little bit of lightning jump around to enemies, Blue Frost Blade, which will make the enemy take damage when they do attacks, Virulent Blade doing a bit of poison, the Warding Blade giving you a shield that will block and do a bit of damage to attackers, Decaying Blade with a bit of necrotic damage, and the Cerebral Blade and Corrosive Blade, and Bright Blade. So yeah, this is really fun, adding in new cantrips. I guess I'll include two more bonuses. The Arcane Vanguard, my favorite class mod. Why I'm going to recommend this for a balanced experience and roleplay friendly? Well, all of the different 8 subclasses here are very well balanced. Athos takes great pride in making sure that everything here feels balanced within Baldur's Gate 3, and it's a very cool subclass with each of the 8 different subclasses having their own kind of unique lane with which you can play them. And my final recommendation is the Dawnstar spell mods. This is my favorite spell pack because they all come with some crazy cool unique animations. This one's a little bit less roleplay friendly as they're very powerful looking spells, and if you're just a D&D player, none of these will really they're like entirely new spells, but I gotta say, these are some of the best looking spells that I've ever seen in a video game. Like, seriously, that cool. Like, you got your telekinetic spells here. There's recently the new arcane spells, which they released, and they're working on a psychic weapon attack spell pack. There's also Dawnstar's Grimoire water spells if you're doing like a Hydrosophist style build from like Divinity Original Sin 2. And here's the arcane spells. These are magic wizardy focus ones, which I just gotta say, look super cool. So yeah, while some of them are a bit powerful, it's really fun to play with. So there are some roleplay friendly DLC size mods in Baldur's Gate 3's mod manager. I may do another video like this in the future because there's just so many great things. Today's video is mostly focused on a lot of 2024 updates as they all feel pretty lore appropriate and friendly to new players and old players alike. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and I hope you guys all have a fantastic day.